Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we are going to pull back the curtain on one of the biggest secrets in the pastry world. We're talking about the key to a perfect, flaky, unbelievably tender tart crust. Let's get right into it.
You know that moment when you bite into a tart and the crust just shatters? It's not tough, it's not chewy, it's just this delicate, buttery thing that melts in your mouth. Well, I'm here to tell you the texture is no accident. It comes from a very specific kind of dough and an even more specific technique.
So, what is this magic dough called? The foundation for that perfect crust is a true classic from French pastry. It is called Pâte Brisée.
Okay, let's just get the fancy French out of the way. It's pronounced Pâte Brisée, and the name itself literally means broken dough. Now, that might sound a little weird, but broken dough is actually a huge clue that tells us exactly how this dough is made.
See, Pâte Brisée is what bakers call a short dough. And in the baking world, short has nothing to do with height, it means tender. That's the whole point. So what you need to know is this. Pâte Brisée is basically engineered from the ground up to have that perfect, delicate, melt-in-your-mouth texture.
So how do we get that perfect texture? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. The secret isn't just in the ingredients, it's all about the method. It's a technique that kind of flips what you think you know about making dough right on its head.
The classical French term for this is sablage, that's sablage, but what I love even more is the direct translation, the sanding method. And that name is the perfect description for what you're actually trying to do.
Okay, so here's how it works. Most dough recipes have you mix your dry stuff, then cut in the fat, then add the liquid, right? Well, the sanding method says, nope, you combine your fat, your butter, with your flour first. That's step one. Before anything else, you keep mixing them together until the texture totally changes, and only then, at the very end, do you add your liquids. The order is absolutely everything.
So how do you know when you've mixed the fat and flour enough? Well, here's the key. You're looking for a texture that resembles coarse meal, or, you guessed it, sand. That visual cue, that sandy texture, is your green light. It tells you you've done the most important step correctly.
So why on earth does this work so well? I mean, why does mixing fat and flour first make such a massive difference? Well, it all comes down to some really cool and actually pretty simple food science.
The number one goal, the whole mission here, is to limit gluten development. Gluten is the protein that forms when flour and water mix. It gives bread that awesome structure and chew, but for a delicate tart crust, gluten is the enemy. We want as little of it as possible.
So here's how we defeat the gluten. By rubbing that fat into the flour first, you are literally coating each individual flour particle in a protective fatty layer. It's like putting a tiny waterproof jacket on every grain of flour. So when you finally add the water, that fatty layer acts like a shield. It keeps the flour from absorbing too much liquid. Less water absorption means less gluten can form, and less gluten gets you an incredibly tender pastry. That's it. That's the whole secret.
All right, science lesson over. Now that we know the what, the how, and the why, let's talk about the fun part. Where do you actually use this amazing dough?
What's really cool is that if you've done some American baking, this might feel a little familiar. The recipe for Pâte Brisée is almost identical to what many of us would call an enriched pie pastry. They're basically culinary first cousins, and you can often use them in the exact same ways.
So, what is its true calling? Pâte Brisée is the absolute, hands-down, classic go-to for large tarts. It's sturdy enough to hold a ton of filling, but that texture stays perfectly delicate and short. It's the best of both worlds. You know, think of a beautiful French fruit tart from a bakery, or a classic savory quiche. This is the crust you want.
So there you have it. The secret to that professional-level tart crust isn't some fancy, hard-to-find ingredient. It's a method. It's a little bit of science called sablage. By coating your flour in fat, you protect it from water, you stop gluten in its tracks, and you basically guarantee a tender, amazing result every single time. So I guess the only question left is, what are you going to bake first?